I'd like to bring in Crystal Echo Hawk, founder and executive director of IllumiNative, a Native woman-led social and racial justice nonprofit organization dedicated to building power for Native people. Crystal, thank you so much for joining us. You know, your organization has conducted some research that suggests the vast majority of Americans know very little about Native people. What do you make of that?
Well, thank you, Diane, for having me on. And yes, you know, our research found that nearly 80% of Americans know little to nothing about Native peoples. And the reason why is because of big systems like K through 12 education. A study conducted by Professor Sarah Scheer found that nearly 90% of schools in the country don't teach about Native Americans past 1900. We face great erasure in TV and film. You know, our representation across TV and film counts for less than 0.4%. You know, up until very recently, we've had very little representation within all levels of government. And you really began to look at that erasure through media, entertainment, education, government has really left the majority of Americans thinking that Native Americans sort of ceased to exist by 1900. In fact, a study conducted found that nearly 90% of the images on Google, when you type in Native American, come up pre-1900. So the erasure has been really, really profound. And that's why the majority of Americans today, many wonder if we still exist, and certainly do not know a lot about contemporary Native peoples.
Why is Native American representation in TV and film so important, particularly when it comes to modern portrayals?
Well, because one, for looking at Hollywood and TV and film, Hollywood generates 80% of the world's content. Right. When we think about what we consume, and we think increasingly, I think we look at the trend lines where more and more Americans are not only just watching, you know, TV and streaming and all the things for entertainment. I mean, it's where they get their news. It's like how people are forming and shaping their opinions. So we understand that this is a really, really important space for contemporary Native representation, because this is more likely where we're going to be able to reach more Americans to show, for example, like on Reservation Dogs, you know, how wonderful and complex and dynamic and funny our communities are. And I think that, you know, there's so many universal themes, I think, in some of these new shows, whether it's Rutherford Falls, Reservation Dogs, and others, that really Americans begin to kind of see that we are not these exotic, ancient, romanticized, or tragic figures from the past. We're really vibrant, dynamic, I think hilarious, complex people just like everybody else. And so we know that we, through the power of TV and film and entertainment and media, we know that we can reach a lot more people and move a lot more hearts and minds for Americans to see who we are today.
Now, as representation increases, some are now saying this moment should become a movement. What do you think that means? What does that look like?
You know, I think historically within Hollywood, you know, we've had, you kind of look at case studies around other populations. I think about Asian American population where, you know, you have these big sort of bursts, right? You have these wonderful movies that kind of come out, you know, Joy Luck Club, you know, or Crazy Rich Asians. And then all of a sudden you don't see a lot more of stories from this particular community, right? And I think that we've seen that with Native peoples. We don't want this just to be a couple one-offs. And as much as we are so excited, again, about these new shows, Reservation Dogs, Rutherford Falls, Spirit Rangers is a huge kids show that's really doing well on Netflix right now. We want to make sure that we're not happy with just a handful of shows. We want to see sustained representation, contemporary representation of Native peoples. That is so critical. But we know right now we're already starting to see a backlash in Hollywood where some major studios have been announcing sort of cutting back diversity programming and really sort of, you know, making the case that people maybe aren't as interested in some of these diverse stories. But studies really show that diverse representation is bringing new audiences. And we're actually going to be publishing new data next year that really proves that.
All right, Crystal Echo Hawk, great to have you. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.